Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're out here at the lake. We're doing some trail riding today, and we're going to be reviewing the SMLRO E5 Plus dual motor e-bike. Now, I've had this for a while. I've gotten a lot of use out of it, and so I'm going to pass that info on to you guys. I'll give you the stats of it. We'll take it for a ride, and I'll just try to show you guys as much as I can about this bike. The E5 Plus is a dual motor e-bike. It's got 1000 watts in the front and 1000 watts in the rear. These are hub motors, and they do provide a good amount of power for trail riding, for 45-degree inclines. And we have tested this bike. It does have a good amount of torque behind it for getting up some of those tight trails. This bike does have an 18 amp hour lithium ion battery, which is removable. You can charge this either in the bike itself, or you can slide it out the back. The battery does have an on and off switch, and it does have a switch for the rear taillight, which you guys will see later on in the review. I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely love the look of this bike. I really like the old school vintage style of it. I like the way the seat is, and I just like the overall ergonomics, how it kind of feels more like you're riding a trail bike. As I mentioned, I have had this bike for a while, and it does require some assembly. I do have a separate video for that. If you guys are interested, I'll leave a link for that in the description. You can check it out. It's pretty simple, and it really only takes just about 20 minutes. Now, I mentioned a trail bike because that's typically how I use this. I do a lot of trail riding with this. We have some local trails that I've had a lot of fun on with this bike. It works really well, and I was really surprised on my first outing at how much power this has. Now, I'm 170 pounds. I'm over 6 feet tall, and this bike to me feels perfect, and it's got just the amount of power that I'm able to get up just about anything. The front fork on the E5 is very nice, very plush. You've got your double crown here. You've got compression and preload adjustment depending on your weight. I've got this set up pretty stiff, and it's a very plush ride. They've done a good job with the fork selection on this bike. Very pleased with it, and it works really well for trail riding. And along with these fat tires, you know, I'm able to lower the pressure, and that definitely helps with the ride. This bike is outfitted with 20-inch wheels, and it's got 4-inch wide fat tires. The tread on these tires is very aggressive. It works really well in muddy conditions, and it works really well in dry pack with rocks. We've used it in both. Tires are very durable. I haven't had any flats, haven't had any punctures. The max rating is 20 psi, although I run at 16 because it gives you a little bit better ride on the trails. You're going to get a little bit more traction. Now, if you're going to be running this on the street, you probably want to go the 20 psi. It's going to be a little bit higher. You're going to have less strain on the motors, and you're going to be able to go just a little faster. California got hit pretty hard with the rainstorms, and this particular area was still pretty wet. We had had rain the night before, and so I was anxious to get out on the trail with the E5 and really do some testing in some wetter conditions. And I really think that's where the beauty of having a dual motor e-bike really came into play, especially in those corners that are really muddy. Having that front motor really kind of sucks you around the turns. You're able to go a little bit faster, and in those areas with the real thick mud, the bike just tracks really well, and it doesn't have that feeling of wanting to wash out. And I just had a really fun day on this bike, cruising around and exploring these trails. The E5 does have a very nice layout as far as the controls on the handlebars. You can hold down the controller here, the center button, for a few seconds, and that's going to turn on the display, which is full color, and it works really well at nighttime for those night rides. Now, off to the left side here, you've got display control here, and that's going to show you your trip meter. That's going to show you your max miles per hour, your average miles per hour, and it's going to show your odometer. And then on top of that, you got your levels of assist that goes from 0 all the way up to 5. And then you got your battery indicator here, and so you're really able to keep tabs on the health of the bike. And then off to the left here, you've got the switch for the front headlight, and that's going to turn on a tail light as well. And then you got your horn, which seems to be definitely loud enough. I did spend a couple days up at my favorite campground, and one of the nights I took the E5 out for a trail ride. I wanted to test out the front LED headlight, make any adjustments as needed, and I gotta say that thing is really bright. There's no doubt that you would see it. For those of you who want to do any commuting at night, heads-up display, you know, is more than bright enough. You're easily able to keep track of your speed. You can see your odometer, and having the color screen is really kind of a step up. The tail light is more than bright enough, and so you're going to be seen from front and rear. For those of you who want to use the pedal assist, you do have a 7-speed cassette back here with Shimano shift components. This bike does shift very smoothly, and it does have enough gears to get you from point A to point B fairly comfortably. A lot of these inexpensive e-bikes you'll see with mechanical disc brakes, and that's just what this has. They do function as intended. I've had no issues stopping the bike. But you're not going to have the feel that you get from hydraulic disc brakes. The E5 is ready for passengers. It does have spring-loaded foot pegs that are really easy to deploy off the side, and there should be plenty of room for your passengers' feet. As I mentioned, the E5 does ride a lot like a vintage style motorcycle, and part of that feel is the plush seat. This seat is very comfortable. It's 24 inches long, it's 7 inches wide, it's got about 4 inches of padding, so it is very comfortable, and it is long enough to where you can move your body forward and back, really depending on the type of terrain that you're riding. I did test the overall speed of the E5 in pure electric mode and found that it averaged between 24 and 28 miles per hour. Now this is going to be dependent on the rider's weight, the road conditions, and how many PSI you have on the tires. Now the controller can be slightly manipulated if you wanted to get some more speed out of it, but I found the way that it's set in pure electric mode, it seems to be more than fast enough for a lot of the fire roads and tight trails that I frequently ride. This bike is outfitted with a cargo rack. It's 8 by 11 inches and it's 7 inches deep, and so it's just large enough for a bag of groceries or any kind of supplies that you might use for going camping or just a daily ride around town. Now let's talk a little about range. Now this is an 18 amp hour battery. You do have 2 full 1000 watt motors front and rear, and so this bike does have a lot of power. Now conservatively, I'm able to get 38 miles per charge, and that's in pure electric mode, and that's riding really aggressively. Those of you who want to use the pedal assist and you want to help it along, you can expect to get just about 60 miles per charge. So this bike does have a lot of range with that battery, more than I've seen on a lot of other bikes, at least in this price range. All this is really going to be dependent on the rider's weight, the road conditions, if you've got hills, if you've got flat ground, really how aggressively you're riding the bike and how much you're willing to help it along. I have ridden this bike quite extensively, and there's 2 things that I normally don't use with this bike, and that's the center stand, which hangs down a bit low. And I ride a lot of fire roads, I ride a lot of real rough trails, and having the extra ground clearance is kind of important for a lot of those areas, and so I just leave it off. I've got the other kickstand which I use, and then I go ahead and I remove the front fender And the reason for that is a lot of those trails get, they load up the tires with rocks and gravel, and it's kind of loud on some of those trails, and so I just removed it. I don't really need it, but if you're going to do commuting, you know, around town, you know, in the city, you probably want to have the front fender, or if you're riding it in wet conditions, muddy conditions, you know, that's going to prevent anything from flinging up onto you. But it's just my own personal preference. I've had a lot of fun with the E5 in the past month. It's treated me really well. It's just a fast, fun bike that works really well on a lot of the fire roads and tight trails. Now, I ride this bike fairly aggressively, and part of preventative maintenance is just after each ride, you know, you want to check the spokes, you want to make sure that everything is tight, and you want to make sure that you charge the battery right away. Don't let it sit for a long period of time, discharge. It's not good for it. And by charging it and keeping up the health of it, it's going to ensure that you're going to get the full 2,000 cycles. So I really hope I was able to share in good detail my experience with the E5. I hope you guys enjoyed the review. This was not just an unboxing review. You know, I have used it, I've gotten a lot of miles on it, and I have ridden it quite aggressively. If you guys have any questions I haven't answered, please leave a comment and I'll try to answer them as quickly as I can. I will leave a link in the description for you guys if you're interested, but I really appreciate it, and I look forward to bringing you guys more reviews pretty soon.